Today's topic, friends, is as follows. Connected, as we'll see, to Pesach Sheni and to Shavuos, and that is this. How do we understand something that for a period of time is so abhorrent that even the slightest amount is not tolerated? And then 7 days later or 8 days later, not only is it tolerated and permissible, in fact, it becomes mandated. What am I talking about? I'm talking about CHOMETZ. When it comes to CHOMETZ on Pesach, as we all know, there's zero tolerance. The law of nullification that applies to other forbidden foods or forbidden mixtures, like we're all aware, if by mistake a little bit of milk falls into a meat stew, then depending on the ratio, it's perfectly permissible because the drop of milk becomes nullified. It has to be liquid, etc., 60-1. There's all kinds of ratios and all kinds of formula. But at the end of the day, it becomes nullified. CHOMETZ never becomes nullified, which is why people go to extraordinary lengths to divest themselves of CHOMETZ on Pesach, because there's no safety net. There's no, well, even if a little bit is present, it's nullified. There's no such law. Moreover, not only there's no law of nullification in terms of consumption, as you all know, we may not even own CHOMETZ, own it. Now, meat and milk, a forbidden mixture of meat and milk or non-kosher meat, for example, you can own non-kosher meat. You can wear shoes made of, blue pig suede, that's what they call it. As long as you don't eat your shoes, it's okay. It's just consumption. Yet when it comes to CHOMETZ, it's so severe, we may not even own it. Wow. So that would lead us, if what's all you knew, to say CHOMETZ is something terrible, obviously, that the Torah prohibits it so extremely. And yet, after Pesach, you're allowed to have bread. But not only are you allowed to have bread, Shavuos, which culminates Pesach, the whole purpose of the giving of the Torah is to receive, the Exodus is to receive the Torah at Sinai. So the offering that's brought in the Beis HaMikdash is 2 breads, shtei halechem, a special offering brought on Shavuos. It's a unique offering with 2 sheep. I have to appreciate that flour and oil, etc., was used every day with every sacrifice. It's called a meal offering in Hebrew, korban mincha, a gift offering it's called. Because usually a poor person that can only bring this, and when he gives, he's giving himself. At any rate, the year-round, with one exception, they're all non-CHOMETZ. This Beis HaMikdash was basically CHOMETZ-free year-round. Only time they brought CHOMETZ was the 2 breads on Shavuos. And the only other time CHOMETZ was brought was when a Jew brought a Thanksgiving offering. He had to bring 40 breads, 40 loaves, 10 of which had to be CHOMETZ. But otherwise, all of the other meal offerings, which you'll make reference to, Shabbos and Mitzvah Shem and the Musaf, for example, are all non-CHOMETZ. So here, Shavuos, which is the culmination of what? Of Pesach, is Dafka CHOMETZ. It has to be CHOMETZ. It's very strange. Not only is it permissible, you have to. I guess, by the way, that's the reason we have a meat meal and a dairy meal on Shavuos. One of the basic reasons. It's to recall that in the Beis HaMikdash, they offered 2 breads. So how are you going to remember 2 breads? We have anyway 2 challahs at our meal. You have separate meals. What's going to make them separate? A dairy meal and then a meat meal. There's other reasons too, but that's one of the reasons, to recall the shtei halechem. So this is the question. How is something so terrible and extremely so for a limited amount of time, and then not only is it tolerable and welcome, it's actually mandated. You have to have CHOMETZ. If you're bringing a Thanksgiving offering, you've got to bring CHOMETZ. This is why Ashkenazim don't say Mizmor L'Soida on that at Pesach or also at Yom Kippur. Because it's at a Pesach, it's CHOMETZ, and at Yom Kippur, it's eaten at night. We don't eat at night. At any rate, it's for 2 separate reasons. But I'm just saying, that paragraph, chapter 100 from Tehillim, is in place of the Korban Torah, which is why it's called the Song of Thanks. They don't say that at Pesach because it necessitated 10 out of the 40 loaves to be chometz. So is it a good thing or a bad thing? How can it be both? Terrible. And then mandated. Next question. On Achna Pesach, friends, the last day of Pesach, so you know that the minig by all Chassidim, who are very careful throughout Pesach, that the matzah shouldn't get wet. Why are we careful the matzah shouldn't get wet? Because what's chometz? Chometz, of course, is flour and water getting wet and left undisturbed. Within 18 minutes, it turns sour, becomes chometz. That's ordinary flour and water. But if something is baked and then stopped in the middle, baked partially, then it becomes chometz immediately when it gets wet. So what's the fear? The fear that maybe in the matzah there's a piece of dough that didn't bake fully. If it gets wet, it becomes instantly chometz. Now the chances are very remote. Only if the matzah is folded and thick and they're discarded. All the matzahs are inspected and you don't end up getting it. This is the reason, by the way, our matzahs are so thin. They don't have to be so thin. The original matzahs were not, and the Yemenite matzahs are chewy. It's made thin because of the fear to bake it fully and hot and quickly, so that there's no possibility of half-baked. That's why, so we're very careful that the matzah shouldn't get wet. And some people go to extraordinary lengths. We're in Australia, Rabbi Bransky, I've spoken about before. He didn't have matzah in the same room that they ate their meals, period. It was in the next adjacent room. He didn't eat matzah at the meal. The only time they ate matzah at the meal was at the matzah at the Seder, and you weren't eating a meal yet. That's how it is. So everybody knows when it comes to Achon Pesach, we dip them. We make a point of dipping the matzah in liquid on the last day of Pesach. The point of it, Gebroks in Yiddish, which means wetting the matzah. Why? So some people want to say, well, it's on the last day of Pesach, and in Chutz La'aretz, it's only added. In Israel, there's no Achon Pesach. We only have the second day of Pesach, like 2 days Yom Tov. You know the story. Because originally there was a doubt, now there's no doubt, we just continue the custom, minig avosseinu b'yadeinu. We continue the custom of our forefathers who didn't know when Yom Tov was, because of, without going into all the details now, because the moon, the Chodesh was determined each month by an actual sighting of witnesses, and then had to have actual witnesses, and people that far away didn't know. So therefore we're lenient. That's not the answer. Bemis is, and Achon Pesach in many ways was stricter. We have 2 days Yom Tov in the diaspora because we need 2 days, not just carrying on the tradition. That's not the reason. I'll just suggest there's virtue to this. On the last day of Pesach, we want to show that it's only a custom, and Jews that have matzah bowls and dip their matzah, they have knedlach, right, and dip their matzah in liquid are doing nothing wrong whatsoever. Halachically, it's perfectly acceptable. So we want to be like everybody else, so we dip the matzah in the liquid, which is very nice, but you don't compromise. You don't compromise Torah to make a point of Avos Yisrael. It's a nice gesture, but if that's your standard, that's your standard. So why are we dipping the matzah in liquid dafka and dafka Achon Pesach, especially when we consider Achon Pesach is the culmination, the highest day of the whole Pesach. So it's all very puzzling. So the answer to all of the above is as follows. As we all know, what does chometz represent? Chometz and matzah are the same ingredients. It's flour and water. Now, flour and water represent the core essence of the human being. We're made of earth and water, mud. That's Hashem formed man. That's symbolically what the basic element of flour and water. So there's chometz and there's matzah. What's chometz? So the flour and water sit unworked. Unworked. Fascinating fact. If you work physically, you move the flour and water, it'll never ever turn chometz and never sour. The fermentation process cannot happen if there's movement. You could knead the dough forever, it'll never turn it'll never ferment. So if you have your coleslaw in your fridge and you want it to last, you just mix it often. Let it sit, it'll start to ferment, or your potato salad or anything, or your milk. Keep on stirring it, it'll not go sour. So what's the inyan? What does this all mean? So souring, my friends, is ego. It inflates, and ego causes souring. A person who is, to whatever degree he's egoful, he's constantly sour. He's constantly upset. He's constantly bragious. His nose is constantly being, out of joint. This one did, this one did, and that one did. Nothing's according to the way he likes. And very rarely, because life isn't perfect. So he sours. And then there's fissures start to develop, just to crack. That's the nature of ego, division. Why is that? Because there's no work. We're not working. We're not pummeling ourselves, our ego down. Then it inflates and sours, and we become, at the end of the day, quite obnoxious, to whatever degree we become obnoxious. That's what happens if you don't work it. Let the ego get away with itself without avodah, without working on ourselves. That's the net result. Doesn't take too long. It's just interesting observation. And if we do work on ourselves a little bit and then stop halfway, so there's an element of refinement, then we're the worst, because we're going to use our refinement for our egotistical agendas. Our spirituality becomes corrupted. That's why when the dough is baked a little bit and then stops, right away, chometz. You're going to use, because someone's using spirituality, which is the work, but then won't, just to his advantage, won't take it all the way. So that's a corrupted spirituality, which is instantly chometz, which is even worse than ordinary ego. You follow that? Yeah. So chometz is the ego. So what's the Torah say? What's Pesach? Pesach is the birth of the Jewish people. As the prophet Yecheskel describes it, Ezekiel, Leidas Am Yisrael. It represents our spiritual birth, core, foundation, the very beginning. So there's Pesach for 7 days, and every day we mention the Exodus because there's a rebirth every day on some level. We've got to revisit this every day. So friends, at the birth, there's no chometz. At the foundation, it's got to be clear at the very foundation, the whole world is not about my ego trip. It's got to be clear at the outset. No opinion. Just listen up here. There's a creator, and that's why you're here, and there's a divine purpose. That's got to be the foundation. In simple language, any relationship that's worthy, any endeavor for that matter, has to begin with total and absolute commitment. Tell me what I should do. What do you want? No opinion, no contribution, like a matzah, flat, open to receive. Guide me. I didn't create myself. It's your world. You tell me what you want. Likewise in a relationship. The foundation of the relationship has to be, what do you want? That's how it's got to start. If that's not the foundation, they'll kill each other. They'll just kill each other. Because everyone is fighting for their turf. No, it's about me. Okay, can't be about me, so I'm going to give you. So it's a business. I give you, so you give me. In business, it works as long as you're making money. You don't make money, you very nicely dissolve the relationship, and goodbye, Charlie. In relationships, when things aren't going, that's going to be the result. I mean, it'll be over. Or they'll just endure whatever, just endure the suffering, which is terrible. But that's all that's going to happen if the whole thing is based on chometz, on me, doomed to begin with. So that's why Pesach, the beginning, the foundation, the birth, is zero tolerance for chometz. Excuse me, you have nothing to say. You listen. You hear what she's saying, what God's saying. That's it. That's the foundation, then and forever. and zero tolerance. Can't eat chametz, can't own chametz. It's just absolute. It has to be. It's got to be pure. Commitment's commitment. Not I'm committed sometimes, but most of the time, you commit or not, in or out. It's in or out. And there's no room for, well, basically, but we'll see. Well, to be renegotiated down the road. We'll see how it goes. That's business is good like that. You're not committed to business forever, in or out. We're always going to be partners. That's ridiculous and stupid. You have to make money. Nothing's forever. As long as it works, it works. Even friendships can be like that. There are friendships like that. As long as it's filling my need, we're buddies. If not, I don't have time for you. This can't work with God. It can't work with your spouse. Zero tolerance. That is why Pesach, which is the birth, zero chametz. But then comes Shavuos, and we'll soon see Achen Shel Pesach and Pesach Sheni, many steps along the way, which we'll try and identify, where not only is chametz tolerated, but it's welcomed and mandated. Mandated. Shavuos, which is the culmination of Pesach, is mandated. And you only have, again, two chametz breads were offered and eaten by the Kohanim. That's representatives of all the Jewish people. And as we said before, we'll get to it, the Thanksgiving offering also has to be chametz. So let's make it bekitzer because I'm running out of time. Let's talk about a marriage because our relationship with God is a marriage. As we've pointed out many times, marriage is not a good idea. Two people forever is not a good idea. It's a romantic idea, but it's not a good idea. It's a godly idea, and it can't work if it's not based on godliness, which is this commitment, this self-effacement, this foundation, this Pesach, this zero chametz tolerance at its root. Can't work otherwise. And that's not natural because ego is nature. Just leave the flour and water alone. It's going to turn into chametz. That's the natural result. You pummel it and beat it and beat it and beat it, it doesn't turn into chametz. That's not natural. That's avodah. To work the dough that it doesn't become chametz. So that's the foundation. But then in the marriage, again, talking about the marriage because it's a reflection of relationship with God. So what does she want? She wants a husband that has absolutely zero opinion, nothing to share an experience with. Whatever she wants, he'll do. No. You can buy a robot for that. Actually make these in Japan. You know that? The kind of robots, male, female, and whatever you want, the robot will do. Companion. It's crazy. I mean, people take these out for walks, etc. Someone sent me a documentary on it. Yeah, a companion that's completely submissive, that's whatever I want. And it's made like a human being, pliable. Technology today is pretty amazing, friends. And it's going to get worse in that sense. Akolponim, that's what she wants. That's what you want in a relationship. No, she wants your opinion and your heart and to feel and to experience and your creativity and your unique personality. Yeah. But what? Built on the commitment. Once the commitment is there, it reintroduce the self, that's the chometz now, that is mandated, culminating with Shavuos. That must be. Hashem wants our opinion, our creativity, and our unique personality. I created you with this, says God, not for nothing. Use it, fill it. Every ounce, every resource of your talent, be expressive, be the unique you that's unique in the world that no one else is like you. But the only way that the unique you can be truly you, godly and contributing, is if it's based on absolute commitment. On the 7 grueling days of pummeling, pummeling the ego as a foundation. And we mentioned the Exodus day because it's not to be ever forgotten or ever to be lax upon. So answering your question, is chametz bad or good? Is the ego bad or good? The answer is if the ego is left alone and there's no commitment and work and harnessed and channeled and literally pummeled and worked, it is the evil and the source of every evil and abuse in the world. It all comes down to one thing, ego. Everything, every abuse, every war, every pain, every injustice. But if the ego is surrenders willingly, it's not easy, but through work to Hashem, now you use your ego for what God wants, what your spouse wants, what the community needs from you, etc. All of these expressions. And then not only is it welcome, hello, where are you? Where's your voice? Where's your contribution? Where's your dollar? Where's the things you did? You, everything. Shavuos, you have to have two breads. Bread, chametz. Your opinion, your insight to every talent, write a book, make $1 billion, whatever you can do. Share. We want to hear you. Hashmini, Eskoilich, let me hear your voice. That's all valuable because it's a voice rooted in the humility of Pesach, of surrender, of commitment. And that's the point of it all. So, friends, that explains why the last day of Pesach, finished the 7 days of whole week, gone through every emotion, purging it of ego. 7 days. Purging. It's all you. It's not me. You are the truth. You are my creator. I'm here to serve you. Through 7 days of this deep avodah, the 8th day, a taste of Mashiach already, a taste of the perfect world already. He dipped the chametz into the matzah into chametz, not afraid of chametz anymore. On the contrary, now there's room to reintroduce the ego. So a dafke dip, because it's the culmination, a taste of Shavuos, if you like. And along the way is Pesach Sheni, which is coming next week. Pesach Sheni is also an exodus of birth, but it's with chametz. Unlike the first one, because it's higher. The first Pesach is negating the chametz. The second Pesach is channeling the chametz. It's a Pesach Sheni, but there's no, and you eat matzah too. But together, there's also chametz. So you can have chametz too. Because why? Pesach, without running out of time, Pesach Sheni is even a higher avoid than the first Pesach. Because the first one is the negation of the ego, and now the sublimating the ego. And when does it happen? When the person was impure in between. God willing, next week we'll talk about it. More about Pesach Sheni. But I just want to mention the other exception too, where you need to have chametz, right? It's the korban Shavuos, culminates Pesach when they're in stand, and the second one is what? The korban toida, the Thanksgiving offering. The Thanksgiving offering has to be chametz. Again, all of the other korban minchas, year round, bought by the individual on behalf of the community, all strictly chametz free, except for the Thanksgiving. Why? Simple answer is, friends, when it comes to giving thanks, don't play humble. Don't mumble, shkoyach, thank you, Mr. Humble. Be very elaborate, very expressive, and compliment and notice all the things that the person did for you, and don't take it for granted. The korban toida has to be chametz. I want to hear your voice now. Not a muted thank you and slink out of the house or take the gift and go on. It's a big thank you because that's a humble ego. That's a perfect example of an ego that's expressive, suffused with humility. You're using your words, you're writing out whatever, you're writing a whole thank you letter. Just example. Being very creative in your thank you. It's a very unique thank you, only that you give a thank you like this. So it's your ego. But what's it doing? Your ego is giving thanks. That's a healthy ego. That's the ego harnessed in service. So gratitude has to be very expressive. That's where you be very creative in showing your gratitude. That's where it belongs. That's healthy love. That's healthy ego. That's why the korban toida has to be, the Thanksgiving offering has to be dafka of chametz. All right, friends, it's already 7 o'clock. Off you go to daven.